This is Alan Karpik, goldenblack.com, and a very special commemoration birthday Zoom today of one of the great people that's, I'll say great people that have walked this earth, at least I've had the privilege to know, and that's, of course, Eugene Parker. And his life and legacy is a testament to these six gentlemen that are in the room, or five other gentlemen, I should say, today. I want to introduce Brandon Parker, Eugene's son. Jerry Sichting needs no introduction. Mike Steele, Rod Woodson, and Walter Jordan need no introductions either to the Purdue world. But Brandon, I'm going to start with you and with your dad. It's obviously a day of reflection, and yet this life that he lived, he touched a lot of people. And maybe with the perspective of a little bit of time, what does that mean to you when you have this group of folks and people from around the country and world that celebrate your dad's life?
I mean, to say the least, it means a lot, you know. In this day, it's weird. It's been different every day, every year. It's been a little bit different, but as far as me and my family and just being appreciative of those who just, whether or not it's sending a text or posting something on their social media, you know, we really appreciate being able to kind of keep my dad's memory alive, and hearing, you know, it never gets old to hear people say things like he was one of the best human beings that they knew, you know. Yeah. And it not just on his birthday, but every day, you know, we get a lot of, there's a lot of equity that comes with his, you know, having his last name, and it's something that we don't take for granted. And we definitely don't take for granted, you know, the amount of love and support from the people that we get from Purdue, from his hometown in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So, I mean, like I said, it's kind of a bittersweet celebrate our day sometimes, but we definitely miss him. But it makes it a lot better when you have people who can kind of keep his memory alive, even so, telling you stories or reflecting on things that maybe he and I never got a chance to talk about. And I know my family appreciates it as well.
Rod, and thank you. Great comments, Brandon. And so true. Rod, you gave such an impassioned, wonderful speech at Eugene's celebration of life. And obviously, we've all moved on to continue to do what Eugene would have wanted all of us to do, and that's to live our lives fully. But you look back at that lens of his impact with you. Obviously, your Fort Wayne connection and your professional connection as well. But what are your reflections on this day?
Well, what's up, Brandon? Man, good seeing your face, brother.
You too, man.
You know, when I think of Gene, you know, I think of him in his totality in my life. You know, he was one of the main reasons I went to Purdue. Him and Rosie. You know, since they went to Purdue from Fort Wayne, and I knew those guys and their history. You know, then when I finally got out, and Gene was already in the working world over at Burley Dixon & Sutton, being an attorney, and you know, I wanted somebody to represent me in my life that I could trust. And Gene, you know, is one of those guys that, without a doubt, he's going to keep it 100% with you. But then probably like the biggest calling in my life is that Gene was that guy that constantly talked to me about being a man of faith, being a man of God. And then, I mean, he would get me every single day for my 17 years in the National Football League. And, you know, he was one of those kind souls. He reminds me of Tony Dungy. He has that same temperament, that same mentality, that same trust that players and people have around them. That's very rare in today's society. So, you know, Gene was just one of those guys that was a calming factor in my life. Anytime I had an issue and I needed an answer, or I needed to hear a soothing voice, I called Gene. You know, and so I missed that part of him, but all the things that he taught me leading up to that point are just unforgettable.
Yeah, well said. Jerry Sichting, you had the opportunity to play, you know, you two of the best, maybe as good a backcourt ever in the history of Purdue basketball, with Jerry Sichting and Eugene Parker running around and playing together, and Bruce Parkinson. I'll throw in Mike Steele in there too, but we'll get to that later. But Jerry, tell us about your relationship with Eugene, and how that's continued to grow over the years, and that memory of the two of you playing, because very, you know, that, as Rod said, that demeanor that quiet demeanor. I think he was a pretty big time competitor on the basketball court. Tell me your thoughts there, and as you reflect.
Yeah, to say the least. Eugene was a great competitor. He was a great player, but he was a great competitor. We played one-on-one. I was just talking to Brandon before we went on about some one-on-one battles. I mean, he got the better of me most of the time one-on-one, no question about it. And he made me a better player, and he made everybody, and Rod just alluded to it. He made everybody a better person too by just knowing him. And a couple of real quick things. We lived together one summer. We were both going to summer school, and we lived at the corner of Pierce and Harrison. And I knew a guy that let us stay there for free. So, we were both on board with that, of course, both of us not having a whole lot. So, we would just play ball in the afternoon, then we'd come back. Brandon knows, everybody that knows him knows he had a great voice, was a great singer. And we'd put on the record player out on the porch, and Frank Kendrick would come by. He would be back from Europe, and Eugene would just sing over the record player a lot of times. So we had a lot of fun. But, as Eugene, it's no surprise that he became such a successful agent because, the business that he was in, that's a tough business. You've got to represent your players. You've got to deal with these professional franchises and general managers, and you've got to have the trust of both sides. And he was uniquely qualified to be that guy because he wanted to help guys. He wanted to help Rod and all these stable of players that he had. And I remember, I'll never forget, when at his service, when Rod got up and spoke, then Curtis Martin got up and spoke, and then Deion Sanders was last, and he came up to the podium. And the one thing that Deion said that I will never forget, and it really described Eugene to a T because of what his character was and how he was going to deal with people up front. Deion said, I had this meeting with a guy. I really wasn't going to use him because I was just doing it as a favor. And he goes, but then he sat down and across from him and he hit me with, you know a lot about me. You've heard that I'm honest and everything. He goes, I will never lie to you, Deion. He goes, but I will never lie for you. And so, that's who he was. I mean, he was not gonna, he was gonna tell you the truth, but he was gonna make you be accountable for yourself. And that's why he was so successful at what he did.
Yeah. Mike Steele, I love, we've talked and talked about the great story you've told about and Eugene singing, and I think that is, to me, I can remember as a high schooler, a grade schooler, going to the basketball banquet and hearing Eugene sing, and he was a friend of our family, so we had a chance to know him a little bit socially, privately before that. But tell that story, because I love the story about your phone call to him and when he was visiting Jerry Jones and that role that he played. I believe he said in your 25th wedding anniversary. That was a great story about Eugene, and really it gives you the depth of who this man was.
Well, it's so neat you did this because it made me think about Eugene. I've got 3 pictures on my wall right now I'm looking at, and Eugene's 2 of them, and then Coach Bob's in the middle. And you put Coach Bob and Eugene, and you can't hardly top that. But Eugene sang at our banquet. None of us, I didn't know that he could sing, and he sang "This Guy's in Love with You." The Glee Club put a fake tux on him, and he got up and sang, and it was one of the dang. I was stunned. We were all stunned. Well, then Eugene sang at my wedding, and he sang "This Guy's in Love with You" at our wedding. So the day before my 25th anniversary, I call Eugene's office, and they said he's out in Texas and working on Deion or Emmett or whoever it was with Jerry Jones. So I leave. I said, you tell him this is an emergency. He's got to call me back. So Eugene calls me, and he goes, "What's up, Steele?" He said, "What do you need?" I said, "Eugene, we're having a big party tomorrow night to celebrate our anniversary." I said, "I want you to call on my phone at 9:00, and I want you to sing 'This Guy's in Love with You' to Sandy." And he goes, "That's the emergency?" I said, "Yeah, it's tomorrow." He says, "And when?" I said, "Tomorrow night, 9:00. And he goes, "Still," I said, "Eugene, you know, we love you. And I said, Eugene, you owe me. He goes, what do you mean I owe you? I said, you owe me. I let you beat me out my junior year, and that was the start of your career. So at 9 o'clock, we got all the girls are up there, guys are outside. The phone rings, and I said, just pick it up, Sandy. And all of a sudden I hear her scream, Eugene Parker. And she puts it out. He sings, "This Guy's in Love with You." And my buddies, they go, this is your 25th anniversary, and it didn't cost you a dime, not a dime. And they said, when did you come up with this? I said, yesterday. I didn't have anything else. I thought this would be as good as I could come up with. So yeah, 25th anniversary. It was so special. And Eugene did it because that's just the kind of guy Eugene was. I just love, you know, we all loved Eugene.
Yeah. Walter, I think you're interesting because obviously you were the effervescent. Your nickname was cheerleader. You always showed your emotions and led by that. Eugene, a different personality. You guys go way back to your Fort Wayne high school days as well. Your reflections on, I mean, to me, I still, you guys all watch a ton of basketball and sports. I still haven't seen many guys shoot a jumper like Eugene did with that left, that high arcing shot that he did, but that was part of who he was. He was a very good basketball player. But your reflections on this day, but also that great relationship that you had over the years with him.
So good to see everybody. Brandon, so good to see you, man. It's been a while. Rod, Sandy, Mike, and Jerry, of course. Guys, it's just a tremendous honor to be here with you guys today because you guys all know Eugene. Eugene inspired everybody that know him to want to do better and be better. That's what Eugene Parker in my life. He was a myth before I even knew him. When I was a 14-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid, everybody in Fort Wayne talked about this guy, Eugene Parker. Same age, same class. He was clearly the best player in the city of Fort Wayne. And as a ninth grader, I remember me and my friend walking 2.5 miles in the snow to see this kid play because we didn't get to play Eugene because he's in a Lutheran system. We was in a public school system. And when I saw Eugene play after the game, I'm a little nervous. I'm horrible. I can't play basketball. I'm just out here with my friend who could play, who knew Eugene because they went to the same church, Union Baptist Church together. His name was Raymond Causey. And all he talked about was Eugene Parker. So I had to go see this kid. Now, here we are as sophomores. Eugene has 22 points against a very stiff competition. He could have had 32 if they had three-point line. And after the game, I walk up to him like the nerd that I was. You bad, Eugene Parker. You bad, Eugene Parker. Ain't you bad, Eugene Parker? Eugene looked at me like, boy, who in the hell are you? He had this look on his face like, you nerd. And he teased me about that for 10 years. So we were roommates. But that's the kind of respect I had for him. In fact, I came to Purdue because of Eugene Parker. It was clear after I went to Purdue with him on an unofficial visit, everyone thought I was going to Indiana or Michigan. When I talked to Eugene on the way there, on the way back, something about his character blew me away. I knew he lived his life by standards. I watched him, not rules, standards. He had serious standards for his life. He looked people in the eye. He shook their head. He meant what he said. He was the most trustworthy guy I've ever met. He's a man's man. I always say the F's. I think about the F's when I'm talking about Eugene. He understood his faith. He loved his family. His eyes, he would light up when he talked about his kids. I knew what Brandon was doing through Eugene. I knew what Solomon was doing, what Ty was doing, what Gino was doing. He talked about, he would light up when he talked about his family. So he understood that. His faith, his family, and he found he knew who God said he was. He understood his relationship with God. He had a serious personal relationship with God. That's why he would have been able to do anything he chose to do. I regret the fact that I couldn't sing. God didn't put me in that line because if I could, I'd be singing all the time. But he wasn't boastful about his skills. He was very shy and low key, and that's how he handled everything. But the other thing, he had the ability to stay focused. He stayed focused. He had tunnel vision. I remember when he got drafted by San Antonio, we was working out together. We planned on going to camp and making it in the league. And he calls me up and said, well, meet me somewhere. I said, okay, where you want to meet? We're in Fort Wayne. I meet. He said, hey, man, I'm not going to camp. I said, what do you mean not going to camp? You got the same dream I got. Well, you work your butt off. You've been working, one thing about Eugene, you have to be around him. He's going to improve your work ethic. He's going to improve your attitude. He's going to make sure you understand what it takes to win. That's what Eugene Parker did for me. My whole attitude changed. But when he told me he was going to go to law school, he understood. He was way ahead of his time. I said, what? All of a sudden, because he could have played in the league for 15 years. He's that good. Let's not get it twisted. So when he told me that, he had this vision, but that's why I call him dreaming, because he never dreamed small. He always had big dreams. Everything he did was huge. Nothing about Eugene Parker was small. So was I surprised about the success he had when he connected with Rosie and Rod, and I watched him go? I remember us going to IU game when Rod was a senior, his last game, and I drove down to West Lafayette with Eugene, and Rod did everything. And then Eugene says to me, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And guess what? He's Hall of Famer. See, but those are kind of things that I wish everybody understood. You got to surround yourself with people like a Jerry Sichting, like a Eugene Parker. Those kind of people help you grow and help you get better. Eugene is so profoundly impacted my life, even to this day. And I talk about my growth, and I talk about the mistakes I made. I talk about all the things. And those conversations I had with Eugene, he helped me get through a lot of different things, personal things in my life. And so I just can't repay him enough for what he's done for me in my life and my family. And I just thank God for him. And there's not too many days I go that I don't think about him. In fact, we just had a Eugene Parker night at Concordia High School, so high school this past weekend. The love that he received was unbelievable. Got a chance to talk to your mom, Brandon, and just blew me away. We hadn't talked like that in about an hour. Just blew me away, the story she told about Eugene and how their date night was. She was going retrieving rebounds for him while he was in the gym shooting basketball. That's so typical Eugene, isn't that right? But she said that was a typical date night. So just want to say that we certainly miss him, and there'll never be another Eugene Parker. I'm just so indebted, so grateful for all you guys.
Hey, Walter.
Hey, Michael.
The other thing, Eugene had a really good sense of humor. It was kind of a quiet
laugh.
You remember when we all went to Italy, and you and I and Walter, and Wayne, the four of us, I get a cab and we're trying to find people. I said, look, just take us somewhere where there's people. We want to just, so this cabbie takes us and drops us off. And I look around, there's thousands of people. He dropped us off at a communist rally. It was a hammer and sickle, the four of us. And so I look at Eugene and I go, Eugene, we got to get out of here, man. He said, we're in trouble. Eugene looks up and he says, Steele, we're fine. You're the one that's in trouble. I said, what are you talking about? There was a big banner above us on a billboard. The Globetrotters were coming, and it showed all these black guys. And Eugene goes, we're Globetrotter. You're screwed.
That's great.
Oh,
that's good.
Yeah.
I remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah. Brandon, when you look at your dad and you got all this adulation, well deserved, and you've had a professional life, you're, as I understand it, in the agency business as well, but that calmness that he had, at least, and again, I knew him the least of everybody in this room by a long shot, but he just had that demeanor that if he would wear "Stay Calm" on his T-shirt if he was wearing one. Did that make it challenging for you? Is that how you, or from a standpoint of being his son, here's a guy that's really, if there's perfection, he's pretty close to it. How did you deal with that growing up?
It was tough. It wasn't just the fact that he was so calm. I come from a family of 5 kids, so I was in the middle. So I guess Rod and Walter will probably allude to, if there was a black sheep in our family, it would probably be me. And my dad, I think it was some of his personality, but I think a lot of it was the attorney that was in him. When you're raised by an attorney who kind of has that calm cool demeanor. You know, you just can't get anything over on him ever. I remember multiple times like where I literally had to. I would do something trivial, you know, like wear my brother's shoes or something like that. And I would lie about wearing his shoes and he would put me on trial, literally put me on trial. So, you know, as a dad and, you know, and then being able to eventually, you know, work with my dad as well, which, you know, was pretty cool in itself to kind of like be able to see him in a different, with a different cap on his head, but to see the consistency amongst how he was as a man, you know, exactly how he was with his clients and with teams was how he was with us. And, you know, I think what I appreciated most about my dad and his, you know, who he was if you could ever get him to say something, you knew you could take it to the bank. And, you know, that was something that now that I'm a father now, it's just something that, you admire it even more now because you realize how difficult it is to actually live up to everything that you say you're going to do. But yeah, I mean, his demeanor was the same, but it was tough. You know, it wasn't a whole lot of getting over on him. I'll tell you that much.
Brandon, let me say this. He would light up when he talked about you. You were your own person. All you guys had different personalities, right? And he loved the fact that you were your own person. He loved that. You see what you follow in his footsteps, that I'm sure he's sitting there just gleaming. I know Solomon had a test yesterday or the day before.
Austin.
So both you guys going to probably be doing the same thing that you do. What a blessing. What a testimonial. And I just want to commend you, man, because you're doing a great job, man. We've been following you. Just keep up the good work. I know he's proud of you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Walter. Thanks a lot.
Rod, and I know you've got a hard stop here in a couple of minutes, but I want to get back to you just in terms of, you know, you're the only at least college basketball player in this crowd, but you knew Eugene in a different way, but you've gone on to many professional business ventures and other things, you know, that lesson of working with a guy like that and watching him and having business relationships, what's been that takeaway for you in terms of how you've approached your personal life and the things that he's brought that, hey, these are things I know I can, business principles or life to live by principles that have made a huge difference in your life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought I knew how to play basketball, and Gene and I did a lot of one-on-ones. And I was a really good athlete, and I'd never beat Gene. I mean, Gene would once he get hot, that lefty, you know, you don't see too many lefties. You know, especially as a football player coming in and playing basketball, you know, I was trying to block the right hand. I keep forgetting he was a left-handed shooter. And then he would, once he got hot, he would put it on me. I mean, I might have scored. I mean, we would go by one, make it, take it. And man, he would go 10 in a row. And he would just sit there and start laughing, you know. So he was one of those guys that really taught me, mean what you say what you mean. Yeah. And you know what, you know, where, you know, Jerry, you alluded to Dion saying that he's not going to lie for him. And that's how Gene is. You know, Gene just, he lives his life in a way, and he really taught me to live my life in a way that I had standards across the board. And your name meant something. You know, you keep your name clean. And that's the one thing that just comes over and over. And I'm glad I didn't live in the world of social media, because it would have been some dirt on me. And Gene knew all my dirt, you know, and he kept it, but he never brought it up. And his thing was just to make me a better person. And he just chipped away at me. I mean, I had a lot of mentors in my life, but Gene was that rock that I had throughout my whole career. And he was just the one guy that just taught me how to always do the right thing. So it's kind of my motto now, DTRT, do the right thing. And everything that you do and everything that you say and every way that you live, do the right thing. And that's how Gene lived his life. And it really rubbed off on me. So I'm very appreciative of Gene and his family. Brandon, I see your little baby with you. So, you know, it's awesome to see the family keep moving forward. Give us an introduction,
Brandon.
This is Skylar. This is my dad's only grandchild.
Hey, Skylar.
Skylar, say hi, Bubba.
Skylar.
Oh,
She just woke
how
up.
cool
Her
is
mom,
that?
where her mother is, but I'll play a little bit mom for now.
You're all good. You're all good. Jerry, I wanted to ask you about, you came from Martinsville. He came from Fort Wayne. They're two pretty different places.
To
That
say
first
the
relationship.
least. To say the least, right, Jerry?
What you guys used to call me? What you used to call me? Remember?
Tell you.
White brother from Martinsville. Remember? I used to hang out with you guys all the time.
You still are. You still are.
First meet, because first impressions, you guys all kind of hit on that and the need to do, like Rod said, do things right every time. But that first impression, first time you met him, if you remember, Jerry, what that was like, because you were competing for playing time with him, certainly at that time. And I mean, he was a competitor in the backcourt. You had, I think, Bruce Parkinson and Kyle Macy maybe at the same time. But tell us about, you know, that beauty of the first impression, if you can recall that, of what that was when you met Eugene for the first time.
Well, I didn't know a whole lot about Eugene until he was a freshman. You know, Walter and Eugene and Wayne Walls and Michael White and Dick Satterfield, they were the Soul Patrol. So that's when I first kind of, you know, I knew Walter because they won the state championship, and I knew Wayne because he was in my conference. But Eugene, I didn't know that much about him. But then when he got some playing time there as a freshman, and they'd come in, and these guys would play with a lot of energy, and the crowd would go crazy when they get in the game. And, you know, Coach Schaus would use them. You know, sometimes when the team was doing bad, he'd throw them in there because he knew he'd get the crowd in the game, and the game would change. And so I knew he was pretty good after I watched him his freshman year. So, but when I got to Purdue, I mean, I was surrounded with competition. I mean, Parkinson, Macy, and Eugene. But you know, Eugene and I, we started together for 3 years or 2 years, played together for 3 years. So he pushed me, you know, he pushed me every day in practice. But I gotta interject one thing. So I did do one pretty big thing for Eugene, and actually I did it for the other guy too. When I was with the Timberwolves, there was a guy in town. His name was Larry Fitzgerald, and so I knew his dad. And I'd seen Larry play basketball. I never saw him play football. But then he was at Pittsburgh, and I start seeing how good he is on TV. And so I talked to his dad. He had a couple big games late. It was either a sophomore or junior year. It might have been his junior year. And I talked to Big Larry, and I said, he worked for the local radio station and did some sports writing and stuff. So he would come by practice sometimes. And I walked up to him after practice one day. I said, Larry, what's your son going to do? Is he going to go pro? It's probably a good time for him to go pro. He goes, yeah, I think he is. And I said, well, who's he going to use as an agent? And he says, I'm not sure. I don't really know. I don't know who to. I go, well, don't do anything until you talk to this guy that used to play college basketball with me, Eugene Parker. And he goes, really? I go, yeah, I'll give you his number. And of course, they ended up hooking up, and he became his agent. So not only did I do Eugene a favor, I did Larry Fitzgerald a big favor by getting him the right guy.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah, no doubt. And Larry Fitzgerald about as accomplished as it gets
Alan,
as an NFLer to say. Yeah, go ahead, Walter. Go ahead.
Think about the four guards that we just talked about on the same team. I'm pretty sure with Parkinson, Parker, Jerry, and Macy, there was never any Purdue team that had those kind of four guards on the same team. I'm pretty sure that's probably the best four guard combination in Purdue.
I don't think it's ever been better. No, I agree. Yeah, that's a
Hey,
state
Walter.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
It moved when Coach Schaus said, Mike, what do you think about going to small forward? I said, that's the best idea I've ever heard. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't be. You know, the first time I met Eugene, and you guys will remember this, I think. Remember when, like, you come out of practice, and you go get water, and you chill a little bit, and you kind of get your breath. Eugene would go jump rope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw him, I felt like I should be like a government worker and say, hey, dude, we don't do you're making the rest of us look really bad. Put the rope down. But that was just Eugene. He wasn't he was just trying to get better. That was just, that was his deal. Absolutely. No, and he would love to play 2-on-2, or if you wanted somebody to play, Eugene was always right there.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
No doubt. All right. I want to this could go on all day, and I would like it to, and I promise as long as I'm in this current gig, I will make this a yearly tradition, and we'll invite you guys because I just think this is if there's one good thing we could do at Gold and Black, that's worth something. I want to keep the legacy of guys like Leroy Keys and Eugene Parker alive, and all of us that are in our living years have that opportunity to do that. Any closing comments? You got the floor, Rod, Walter, Jerry. Anything else that you want to add before we sign off?
I mean, for me, it's, I'm so appreciative of Eugene Parker coming in my life. I mean, my family knew him when he was younger. I followed him as I was a little kid, kind of going through the whole thing, motion, and then, meeting Gene when I was at Purdue, my junior, senior year, and him leading me in the right path. Without Gene, I really don't know where I would have been in life. I mean, I had, my mom and dad are great, but Gene was a calming influence in my life that really changed my mindset on the bigger scheme of things. So, I can't thank him enough, and, thank his family enough for allowing me to take up a lot of his time, because June, I was always calling him when I needed something. So, I'm just really appreciative that Eugene Parker is from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and went to Purdue.
All right. Hey, well said. And we'll put this to a close. Guys, thanks so much for your time. Jerry Sichting, Mike Steele, Rod Woodson, and Brandon and Walter Jordan. It's a privilege for me to be on the have this opportunity to do this. And I promise to make this, we'll do this again. We'll be thinking a lot about Eugene between now and February 24th, 2023, but I promise we'll be back to do this again. So guys, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for your time. And
thank you guys.
We'll
I appreciate everybody.
All right. Be well all. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care, y'all.